So just a few minutes ago I posted a picture on my Facebook wall that is from a book that I'm reading, and in the book there is a description of the law of polarity, and I describe how I've used this idea to navigate my life in many instances. Briefly, the law of polarity states that inherent in every extreme is its polar opposite. So we as human beings, we like to separate opposites into good and bad. But essentially, in the same way that you cannot have day without night, you can't have good without evil. They're one and the same. The difference is in degrees, right? So up and down. They're polar opposites, but the difference is in degrees. Depends on where you're standing, right? It all depends. So one of the questions that came in was, Elliot, how do you actually use this idea of polarity in the choices that you make in your life? I'm going to use a really good example because I spoke to you earlier this week about the necessity for action. So earlier this week I made a video where I talked about if you find that the waters of change in your life are stagnant, things are not the way you'd like them to be, but they're very comfortable, you will get very stuck in this place of resistance against action. And that means you've got to take action, oftentimes very uncomfortable action. So the metaphor that I used was jumping off the bridge or jumping off a cliff and learning how to fly on the way down. This is needed in order for you to continue advancing in your life. Now, the exact opposite of that is true, and in my life I'm experiencing something of a degree whereby I need non-action. And non-action doesn't necessarily mean that you sit by and wait for things to happen. Non-action is a form of allowing, which basically means if things are going really crazy in your life, I also use the metaphor of a tornado. Things are spinning around. So for example, in my life, I've got 4 children. I have to move now. We're in a situation where I've got to move my family. My business is evolving at a rapid rate, and things are going crazy. I am sensitive enough to recognize that this is an opportunity for non-action, because if I were to proceed forward in the trying to make things happen, meanwhile things are going crazy, I could screw up the processes. Instead, I have to allow or proceed in non-action in order to be in the most resourceful place for life to evolve, for my life to move forward. If I interfere, I know this only out of experience, but also out of studying. If I interfere, I can screw up the whole thing. So there you have the two complete opposites. There you have polar opposites, action and allowing or non-action, both of which you have to look at and say, yes, it's good, it's necessary, they're tools that you need to use, but you've got to be sensitive enough to know when to use what tool. Instead of saying it's all about action, and if you don't take action, you're kind of lazy, or saying that being in a place where it's all about non-action and you actually are lazy, and when action time comes, you fumble. So that's it. You got to recognize that inherent in every extreme is, hey, say hi. Is its complete opposite, and you've got to be sensitive enough to know when the appropriate action or non-action needs to be taken.